I was sitting in the driver's seat of my rusted sedan, the smell of cold instant noodles filling the cramped space. It was raining, the kind of grey, miserable rain that matched my mood perfectly. I was stressing over making rent on my studio apartment when my phone lit up on the dashboard. It was a credit monitoring alert. My heart skipped a beat, assuming it was a late fee or a collection notice for a medical bill. I unlocked the screen and froze. The notification read, "New mortgage account opened. Principal balance, $750,000. I stared at the number, waiting for it to change. It had to be a glitch. I had a credit score of $512 in my checking account. No bank on earth would lend me nearly $1 million. I tapped the details. The address was a property in the historic district, a Victorian home I had driven past 1,000 times, dreaming of a life I couldn't afford. Panic turned into adrenaline. I turned the key in the ignition and drove, speeding through red lights, my hands shaking on the wheel. When I pulled up to the house, I didn't see a construction crew or a bank agent. I saw my older brother, Marcus, popping a bottle of champagne on the front lawn. My parents, Arthur and Martha, were cheering, holding plastic flutes. Marcus spotted me, waved a thick stack of papers in the air, and shouted, "I finally did it, Julian." I bought the dream. I slammed my car door and marched across the wet grass. "What did you do?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mix of rage and terror. Marcus laughed, wrapping an arm around my shoulder. He smelled like expensive cologne and arrogance. "Relax, little brother. I just borrowed a little credibility. You weren't using it." I looked at my parents. I expected them to be horrified. I expected my mother to scream. Instead, she took a sip of her champagne and sighed. "Don't make a scene, Julian," she said, her voice flat. Marcus needed a fresh start after his bankruptcy. "It's just paper. It's fraud," I screamed. "You stole my identity. You used my social security number." Marcus rolled his eyes. "I'm the one paying the bills, Julian. I'm the one with the job that can support this. You should be thanking me. I'm building your credit score." The entitlement was suffocating. They had discussed this. They had planned it. They had cannibalized my financial future to feed the golden child. "I'm going to the police," I said, backing away. Marcus's smile vanished. "Go ahead. Send your brother to jail. See if Mum and Dad ever speak to you again." I looked at my father. He looked away. I was alone. The next morning, I sat in the office of Elias, a real estate attorney who looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He went through the credit report, his frown deepening with every page. "It's a clean job," Elias muttered. "He had all your documents. To the bank, here's you." I sat forward, desperate. "So we call the cops, right? We put him in handcuffs." Elias took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "We could, but the investigation will take months. Your credit will be frozen. The bank will seize the house immediately, and you'll be left with legal fees you can't afford. It's a mess, Julian." My shoulders slumped. "So he wins. He just gets to live in a mansion under my name." Elias stopped rubbing his eyes. A slow, predatory smile spread across his face. "Not exactly. See, because he did this so perfectly, the deed isn't in his name. It's in yours. Legally, that is your house. He is just a squatter paying the mortgage." Elias leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Here is what we are going to do. We do nothing. Let him pay down the principal. Let him build the equity. We wait for the statute of limitations on the fraud to near its end. Then, we take it all." I returned to my parents' house 2 days later for a peace summit. The air was thick with tension. Marcus was sitting at the kitchen table, looking smug. He slid a document toward me. "Look, Julian, I don't want bad blood. Just sign this quitclaim deed. It transfers the title officially to me. Then you're off the hook, and I handle everything." He had a pen ready. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was the moment Elias had prepared me for. "I'm not signing a quitclaim," I said, feigning nervousness. "That scares me, but I did write up a loan agreement. Just something that says you're responsible for the payments, so the bank doesn't come after me." I pulled a document out of my backpack. It was a generic-looking contract Elias and I had drafted. It wasn't a deed transfer, it was an acknowledgement of debt masked as a family agreement. Marcus didn't even read the fine print. He was so drunk on his own victory, so sure that I was too stupid to trick him, that he just scribbled his signature. "See," he grinned, clapping me on the back. "Teamwork." I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. He thought he just secured the house. He actually just signed his eviction warrant. 6 months passed. I was living in a studio apartment that smelled like mildew, eating ramen to save every penny. Meanwhile, Marcus was posting Instagram stories of his renovation journey. I watched on my phone as he tore out the old kitchen. He installed Italian marble countertops, a professional-grade stove, and custom cabinetry. It must have cost him $50,000. It was physically painful to watch him spend money he didn't have on a house that wasn't his, while I struggled to keep my lights on. Then, my phone rang. It was a contractor. Mr. Davis, this is Jim from Apex Construction. We need the owner's approval for the structural permit on the kitchen island. He had called me because my name was on the public record. For a second, I panicked. If I said no, Marcus would know. I took a deep breath. Yes, this is Julian Davis. I approve the permit. Make sure it's done to code. I hung up, my hands shaking. I had just authorized a $50,000 upgrade to my asset, paid for entirely by the man who stole my identity. I opened a spreadsheet on my laptop and typed, asset value increased, plus $50,000. Thanksgiving arrived, marking the end of year one. The family gathered at Marcus's house. The place looked incredible. The new floors gleamed, and the smell of roasting turkey filled the air. Marcus played the lord of the manor perfectly, pouring wine and accepting compliments from our aunts and uncles. When we sat down to eat, Marcus pointed to a folding table set up in the corner. Sorry, Julian, we're a bit squeezed for space at the main table. You don't mind sitting with the cousins, do you? I sat on a wobbly metal chair, knees hitting my chin, while my brother sat at the head of the mahogany dining table. After dinner, he handed me a gift wrapped in shiny paper. I know things are tight for you, he said loudly, so everyone could hear. I opened it. It was a book, Basic Budgeting for Dummies. Maybe one day you'll be able to afford a place like this, he sneered. The room chuckled. I smiled, gripping my fork until my knuckles turned white. Thanks, Marcus. This is really helpful. I excused myself to the bathroom. On the way, I stopped by the utility closet and snapped a photo of the new high-efficiency HVAC system he had just installed. Another 15 grand added to the pot. A crisis emerged in the spring. I was at work when I got an alert from the county tax assessor's office. They were conducting a random audit on homestead exemptions. They had mailed a letter to the house. If Marcus opened that letter, he would see that the exemption was filed under my name, not his. He might realize the title transfer never happened. I had to intercept that mail. I called in sick to work and drove to the neighborhood, parking 3 streets away. I waited for 4 hours in the heat, watching the street. Finally, the mail carrier's truck turned the corner. I waited until he deposited the mail in Marcus's box and drove off. I sprinted across the lawn, praying Marcus wasn't looking out the window. I grabbed the stack of envelopes, riffled through them, and found the county seal. I shoved it into my jacket and put the rest back. As I turned to leave, Marcus's Tesla pulled into the driveway. I dove behind a hedge, my heart hammering like a trapped bird. He walked right past me, whistling, oblivious. I waited until he went inside, then ran back to my car. I forged the response to the county that night. The illusion was safe. 2 years in, Marcus met someone. Her name was Chloe, a wealthy influencer who came from old money. She moved in within 3 months. Chloe decided the Victorian charm was nice, but the backyard needed a pool. I watched from afar as excavators tore up the grass. This was risky. A pool increased liability and insurance premiums. If someone got hurt, I could be sued. But I couldn't stop it without revealing my hand. I did some digging and found out Chloe was paying for the pool in cash. $80,000 of her own money was being poured into concrete and tile in my backyard. I felt a pang of guilt. Chloe didn't know she was being conned. She was just a girl in love. But then I remembered the week before, when I ran into them at the grocery store. Chloe had looked at my rusted sedan and laughed, asking Marcus why he didn't help his poor brother get a real car. Marcus had shrugged and said, "Some people just like being victims." The guilt evaporated instantly. I let her dig the pool. I let her plant the palm trees. She was just another investor. Year 2 brought a low point. My old car finally died, and I needed a loan for a used Honda. I sat in the bank, confident that my credit was improving. The loan officer typed in my information and frowned. "Mr. Davis, I can't approve this loan." I was confused. "Why? My score is good." She turned the screen around. "Your debt-to-income ratio is astronomical. You have a $700,000 mortgage and you make $40,000 a year. You are leveraged to the hilt." I walked out of the bank in the pouring rain, humiliated. I had to take the bus to work. As I sat on the wet plastic seat, my phone buzzed. It was a late payment notification. Marcus had missed the mortgage payment. Panic seized me. If the house went into foreclosure, the bank would take it, and 5 years of waiting would be for nothing. I had $300 in savings, money meant for food. I logged into the payment portal and paid Marcus's mortgage bill anonymously. I ate plain rice for 2 weeks. I saved the house, but I promised myself that Marcus would pay for every grain of rice I ate. Money got tight for Marcus. The high life was expensive, and his consulting business wasn't bringing in consistent cash. He decided to rent out the basement apartment to a local college student. He listed it online for $1,500 a month. I saw the listing and saw red. He was now profiting off the crime, putting cash in his pocket using my property. I called Elias, furious. We have to stop him. He's making money off me. Elias was calm. Let him. He's collecting rent on a property he doesn't own. That is tax fraud and rental fraud. Added to the pile. But I couldn't just sit back. I created a fake email address, posing as the Historic District Homeowner Association. I sent Marcus a stern email about illegal parking and unauthorized tenant guests. I watched with satisfaction as he ranted on Facebook about the tyrannical Hoa. It was petty, but it was the only control I had. It reminded me that he was watched. He was never truly the master of the house, he was just a guest who didn't know it yet. Year 3. The wedding. Marcus and Chloe decided to save money on a venue and host the wedding in the backyard I owned. I received an invitation out of pity. I stood by the punch bowl, wearing a suit one bought at a thrift store, watching 200 people dance on my lawn. The pool Chloe paid for was glowing blue in the twilight. It looked like a scene from a movie. My father, Arthur, stood up to give a toast. He raised his glass, tears in his eyes. To Marcus, he boomed. The most successful man in the family. He built this empire from scratch. He is a provider, a visionary, and a homeowner. The crowd cheered. Marcus kissed Chloe, looking like a king. I reached into my jacket pocket and touched the folded copy of the deed I carried with me everywhere. I wanted to scream. I wanted to march up to the microphone and read the legal description of the property. But I stopped. I heard Marcus telling a guest that the house had appreciated $200,000 in value since they bought it. I took a sip of punch. Let them dance, I thought. They are dancing on a trapdoor. Interest rates dropped significantly in the middle of year 3. Everyone was refinancing. Marcus, wanting to lower his monthly payments and maybe pull out some cash for a new car, applied for a refinance. The bank, following protocol, called the number on the original file, my number. I was at work when the call came. Mr. Davis, we are processing your refinance application. We just need to verify a few details. I put on my most professional voice. I'm sorry, there must be a mistake. I did not authorize a refinance. The banker paused. Oh, well, the application was submitted yesterday. Cancel it, I said firmly. I want to keep the current terms. Do not process any changes. An hour later, Marcus called me, screaming. The stupid bank blocked the refinance. They said there was a security freeze or something. Can you believe that incompetence? That's weird, Marcus, I said, playing with a pen. Banks are so messy these days. He was stuck with the higher interest rate, which meant he was paying down the principal faster. He was building my equity at a premium speed. Year 4. The housing market exploded. Prices in the historic district skyrocketed as tech workers moved into the city. I checked Zillow every morning like it was the stock market. The house Marcus bought for $750,000 was now estimated at $1.2 million. My shadow equity was nearly $500,000. It was a fortune that existed only on paper, but it was real. Meanwhile, I had quietly built my own life. I was working 2 jobs, saving everything I could. I met a woman named Tara. She was kind, smart, and didn't care about money. But I couldn't bring her to my apartment because I was ashamed of how I lived. I couldn't tell her about the house because it sounded insane. I'm investing everything I have into a project, I told her one night over cheap diner coffee. It pays out in 1 year. She squeezed my hand. I believe in you, Julian. She was the first person in years who looked at me and didn't see a failure. I couldn't let her down. A few months later, my father had a massive heart attack. He survived, but the medical bills were catastrophic. He needed specialized rehab that insurance wouldn't cover. My mother called a family meeting. She looked old and frail. We need help, she said, looking at Marcus. The rehab is $10,000. Can you help us? Marcus sighed, leaning back in his chair. Mum, I would love to, but I'm house poor. You know how much the upkeep on the Victorian is. I just don't have the liquidity. He refused to liquidate a single stock or sell one of his 2 cars. It's my money, he snapped when she pushed him. I watched my mother's face fall. She had sacrificed me for him, and now he was abandoning her. I stood up. I'll pay it, I said. I used my entire savings, the money I had scraped together for 4 years. My parents praised Marcus for managing his stress during a difficult time, while criticizing me for waiting so long to offer. That was the moment the last emotional tether snapped. I didn't hate him anymore. I just felt nothing. Marcus wanted to pivot. He decided to start a tech consulting firm and needed startup capital. He went to a new bank to take out a business loan, trying to use the house as collateral. This time, he tried to be smarter. He forged my signature on a power of attorney document, claiming I had given him full rights to the property. The bank's fraud department was sharp. They flagged the signature mismatch and called me. Mr. Davis, we have a Mr. Marcus Davis here attempting to leverage your property. The paperwork looks irregular. I held the phone, my finger hovering over the nuclear button. I could send the police to the bank right now. He would be arrested in the lobby. But if he was arrested, the income stopped. The mortgage payment stopped. The house could be jeopardized before the 5-year mark. Freeze the application, I told the banker. But don't call the authorities yet. I will handle this as a family matter. I denied the loan. Marcus came home empty-handed, furious, blaming the system. I had saved him from jail, only to ensure he kept working to pay my bills. Disaster struck from the basement. The college student tenant sued Marcus. Apparently, there was black mold in the basement bathroom that Marcus had ignored for months. The student moved out and filed a lawsuit for health damages. Marcus, being arrogant, ignored the court summons. He threw them in the trash, thinking it would go away. It didn't. A default judgment was entered. But not against Marcus. Against the owner of record, Julian Davis. I found out when my paycheck was garnished. I lost 20% of my income overnight. I was furious. I wanted to burn the house down. But Elias talked me down. Fix the mold, he said. Protect the asset. I waited until Marcus went on a vacation to Cabo. I hired a mold remediation team, met them at the house, and billed the entire $5,000 job to Marcus's credit card number, which I had memorized from a statement I saw on his counter. It was theft. It was dangerous. But the mold was gone, and Marcus paid for it without even knowing. The 5-year mark arrived on a Tuesday. I woke up before my alarm. This was it. The statute of limitations for the initial identity theft was closing, but the mortgage fraud was ongoing. The house had appreciated massively. My credit score had recovered because Marcus, for all his faults, was terrified of losing his status and paid the bills on time. It was time to harvest. I put on my best suit. I drove to Elias's office. We didn't draft a lawsuit. We didn't draft a complaint. We drafted a standard eviction notice and a cease and desist letter. Are you ready? Elias asked, handing me the folder. Once we do this, there is no going back. The family is done. I thought about the Thanksgiving at the kids' table. I thought about the car loan I was denied. I thought about my father's medical bills. The family was done 5 years ago, I said. I'm just closing the book. Before I could serve the papers, a curveball hit. I drove past the house and saw a "for sale" sign in the yard. Marcus was trying to cash out. He wanted to sell the house, take the $600,000 in equity, and move to Europe with Chloe. If he sold it, the check would be cut to Julian Davis, and Marcus would find a way to forge my ID to cash it. I couldn't let the sale go through. I pulled over and called the number on the sign. This is the listing agent, Sarah, a cheery voice answered. Hi, Sarah. My name is Julian Davis. I am the owner of the property you just listed. Oh, hello. Marcus told me you might call. He said you're the co-signer. No, I said, my voice cold. I am the only signer. I did not authorize this listing. Take it down immediately, or I will report you to the licensing board for listing a property without the owner's consent. I emailed her the deed while we were on the phone. The listing was pulled within 10 minutes. An hour later, my phone exploded. Marcus called me, hysterical. What did you do? The realtor cancelled the listing. She says someone called and claimed they own the house. You need to fix this, Julian. Call her back and tell her it's mine. He was panicking, his dream of Europe dissolving. I let him scream for a minute. It was music to my ears. Then I spoke, dropping the submissive, scared tone I had used for 5 years. I can't do that, Marcus, I said, my voice steady and deep. Why not? He shrieked. Because it's not yours, I said. It never was. I hung up the phone. I blocked his number. He drove to my apartment complex to confront me, but I was already gone. I had moved out that morning. The ghost he had been bullying was no longer there. I waited until the next morning. I watched from down the street as Marcus's Tesla and Chloe's Range Rover left for work. The driveway was empty. I walked up to the front porch, accompanied by a locksmith and a sheriff's deputy I had hired for a civil standby. I lost my keys, I told the locksmith, handing him the deed and my driver's license. The deputy verified the paperwork. It was ironclad. The locksmith drilled out the lock in 30 seconds. The sound of the drill was the loudest thing I had ever heard. The door swung open. I stepped inside. The house smelled like sandalwood candles and expensive betrayal. I walked past Marcus's wedding photos on the mantel. I sat down on his Italian leather sofa. I didn't turn on the TV. I just waited. At 5:30 p.m., the front door handle jiggled. Then a key scratched against the lock. Then banging. Chloe, the key isn't working, Marcus shouted. He pounded on the door. I stood up, smoothed my suit jacket, and opened the door. Marcus froze. He looked at me, then at the two private security guards I had hired who were standing in the foyer. What are you doing in my house? He snarled, stepping forward. Get off my property, I said calmly. Marcus's face turned purple. He lunged at me. I paid for this. I paid every dime. You get out. The security guards blocked him easily. I held up the manila folder. You paid rent, Marcus. For 5 years, you were an excellent tenant. Thank you for paying off my principal. Marcus did exactly what I wanted him to do. He called the police. My brother broke into my house. He's a squatter. He screamed at the dispatcher. 2 squad cars arrived within minutes. The neighbors were watching from their porches. Marcus was frantic, waving his arms. Arrest him. He's stealing my home. The police sergeant walked up to me. Sir, is this your residence? Yes, officer, I said. I handed him the deed, the mortgage statement, and the property tax records, all in my name. This man is a guest who has overstayed his welcome. The sergeant looked at Marcus. Sir, do you have a deed? A lease? Anything with your name on it? Marcus stammered. The bills. I pay the electric bill. The sergeant shook his head. That doesn't prove ownership. Sir, the house belongs to Julian Davis. If you have a dispute about money, take it to civil court. But right now, you have to leave the premises. An hour later, my parents arrived. Martha was sobbing, clutching Arthur's arm. They saw Marcus sitting on the curb next to his Audi, defeated. They rushed past him and up to the porch where I stood. How could you do this? Martha screamed. He is your brother. He has nowhere to go. You are destroying this family. I looked down at them. The anger I expected to feel wasn't there. Just pity. You watched him steal my identity, I said quietly. You let him ruin my credit. You ate Thanksgiving dinner at a table board with my stolen name. You chose your favorite child, Mum. We were trying to help him. She pleaded. I know, I said. And I helped him too. I gave him a place to live for 5 years. Now, I'm choosing my investment. I stepped back and closed the heavy oak door in their faces. The lock clicked shut. Marcus didn't go quietly. He sued me for unjust enrichment, claiming that since he paid the mortgage, the equity belonged to him. The court case took 3 months. In the final hearing, Marcus's lawyer gave a passionate speech about fairness and intent. Then Elias stood up. He walked to the judge and presented a single piece of paper, the family loan agreement Marcus had signed in Chapter 4 without reading. Your Honor, Elias said. The plaintiff signed this agreement stating that all payments made to the house were, and I quote, rent and restitution for damage to Julian Davis's credit score. The judge adjusted his glasses. He read the document. He looked at Marcus, who turned pale white. The trap I had set 5 years ago snapped shut. Case dismissed, the judge ruled. The plaintiff has no claim to the equity. Marcus walked out of that courtroom bankrupt, homeless, and defeated. I stood in the living room of the empty house. I had sold Marcus's furniture to pay for a deep cleaning crew. I wanted every trace of him gone. The sun was setting, casting long golden shadows across the floorboards. I walked to the back of the house and opened the French doors to the pool Chloe had paid for. The water was still and perfect. I poured a glass of champagne, the same expensive brand Marcus had been drinking on the lawn 5 years ago. I took a sip. It was cold and sharp. I wasn't happy, exactly. My family was destroyed. My brother hated me. My parents were strangers. But I looked at the deed sitting on the marble counter. I was secure. No one could take this from me. I walked out to the edge of the pool, raised my glass to the empty yard, and finally, for the first time in 5 years, I exhaled. The long con was over. I was home.